Disrespectful billionaire mocked waitress. Wait until you discover her incredible 7-word response. Emma moved through the cramped diner like a whirlwind, navigating between tables, expertly balancing plates of pancakes and coffee while her heart wrestled with the weight of her ambitions. The usual lunchtime buzz filled the air, but today felt different. Then he arrived, a sharply dressed man, radiating arrogance, his demeanor slicing through the warmth of the space like a blade. Jason, the billionaire, quickly unveiled his disdain for the food and the service. His voice dripped with condescension, and the regulars' uneasy silence spoke volumes about the disruption he was causing. "What's taking so long?" he barked, pinching the bridge of his nose with impatience. "Is mediocrity the best you have to offer?" Emma's pulse quickened as he aimed his next comment at her. "Do you really think you can dream big enough to get out of this place?" The mocking laughter that followed sizzled in the air, filling the diner with an ominous tension. Anguish coursed through her. Did he see her, or just a waitress in a cheap apron? No one, not even her children, deserved to be belittled. Hiding her hurt behind a polite smile, she felt the weight of his words settle deep inside her. Yet, as the moments dragged on, resilience sparked within her. "I hold the pen. You only have dollars." The diner fell silent, stunned by her unexpected rebuttal. Before she could fully grasp her defiance, a nearby publisher caught her eye. The flicker of interest, igniting a flicker of hope she'd long buried beneath piles of bills and exhaustion. But fear clawed at her insides. How could she entertain such an opportunity? The responsibilities of single motherhood battered her soul like waves against a shore. Could she balance her dreams with her fierce loyalty to her kids? The clatter of plates dissolved into the background, leaving only the drum of her heart racing against the tide of uncertainty. Then across the tiny diner, she caught a glimpse of Jason sneering, the remnants of his confidence splintering like fragile glass. Her mind swirled as she thought of the audacity of this man, with his wealth built on the backs of countless others. What does a man like him know about sacrifice? But with her newfound visibility lurking in the air, the stakes grew unbearable. What if she could tell her story? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can, leave a like. It really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The internal struggle cut deeper still when Jason returned days later as fortune twisted into misfortune. A scandal rumbled beneath his empire, sending him crashing back into the diner like a thunderous storm. The pretense of superiority collapsed as he stumbled over apologies, empty, hollow. In her gut, Emma felt both pity and resentment bubbling. He should have understood the weight of his past words. As their worlds collided, Emma faced a profound dilemma. Should she remain rooted in her journey of motherhood, risking the chance to escape, or lean into the promise of her voice thriving beyond the diner walls? Her heart thrummed with a cacophony of emotion, each beat drumming a question. Could she ever forgive him, or would his arrogance keep her chained to the dreams she dared to chase? In that flickering moment of decision, the diner felt charged with tension, both Emma and Jason, standing on the brink of new beginnings, yet suffocated by the past. Could either of them break free? Would Emma find the strength to redefine her destiny, or would the bitter taste of betrayal bind her to his shadow forever? The weight of Jason's apology hung in the air like a fog, dense and stifling. Emma observed him with a keen eye, wrestling with an amalgam of emotions that surged within her. His disarming charm, usually dished out with glibness, felt forced now, like a mask slipping. It irritated her that such an insufferable figure could leave her feeling pity. Did he truly understand the consequences of his previous scorn, or was he merely a master of theatrics, inverting the narrative to recapture sympathy? As their gazes locked, Emma steeled herself, uncertain how to navigate this newfound dynamic. Just like her day-to-day grind at the diner, she could slip into a dismissive routine or lean into confrontation. It dawned on her that she was at a crossroads. Right then, she could choose to remain invisible or step forward with clarity and purpose. The clamor of orders and plates echoed in the background, a stark reminder of her reality, but the notion of her aspirations loomed larger. What had felt like a jest concerning her ambition now resonated louder, stirring the voice inside her that longed to shatter restraints. The fleeting idea of writing loomed ahead. Perhaps it wasn't just an escape. It could be a conduit for her voice, a way to break the mold Jason had so blithely dismissed. "Why are you really here?" she asked, the words stunning her. For a moment silence enveloped them, threading through the diner, capturing the attention of the onlookers. His brow furrowed, an uncharacteristic shift that made her pulse race. "I came to apologize." He fell back on the lines rehearsed for this moment, words tumbling out with a rehearsed remorse that seemed more obligatory than sincere. "I thought wealthy men like you only recognized worth in dividends," Emma replied, surprising herself once again. The atmosphere crackled with tension, the diner holding its collective breath. Such verbal fencing was new territory for her. She could feel the rush of adrenaline propelling her. Was this the confrontation she so desperately needed? Each exchange breathed life into her buried ambitions. The way Jason squirmed under her gaze fed her determination. Maybe she was more than the waitress defined by others. Late into the evening, the diner settled, the cicadas outside chiming in pirate songs of summer. Emma swept the floor, but instead of the mindless task she'd often associated with defeat, she found herself mulling over ideas for stories, snippets of dialogue sparking like distant stars, breaking through her doubts. What if she began to pen her experiences, unearthing moments of unexpected strength, her perception altered by Jason's mockery? But the unpredictability of life stared back at her. Could she truly weave her responsibility as a single mother with the raw fragility of her dreams? While the inklings of a plan began to form in her mind, right outside the diner's flickering neon sign, uncertainty loomed like dark clouds threatening rain. Her eyes drifted back toward Jason, who now sat alone at a corner booth, his expression cryptic. Did she see regret there, or merely irritation? That thought collided with her aspirations, nudging her forward. Her story wasn't merely about her. If she took his condescension and transformed it into something larger, she could become an agent of change, perhaps even outsmarting the very man who dared to belittle her. As the final customers trickled out and the diner emptying like her isolation, Emma became aware of her choice. Should she confront him again, challenging the narrative he had spun around her identity, or retreat into safety, tethered to the familiar? Her heart raced, weighing risk against opportunity. She took a deep breath, resolved to step closer to him. She would paint the narrative, reshape her life in the bold strokes of action. The time had come for Emma to face not only the mockery of a billionaire, but also the deeper mockery of her fears. With each step, she could feel the subtle chords of her story unraveling with rich potential. Would she confront him tonight? Or would she wait for another moment to seize her truth? The answer sat on the edge of her tongue, beckoning a decision that felt momentous. Emma's heart raced as she closed the distance between herself and Jason's booth, a sleepy diner now encircled by flickering lights and hushed expectations. The air was thick with unspoken possibilities, and the gravity of the moment anchored her feet to the floor. She could feel the warmth radiating from his table, igniting a fire within her. "What do you want?" she demanded, leaning in, challenging the practiced facade he wore. Her voice was steadier than she felt, cautious yet determined. a significant deviation from the hesitation that had characterized her before. She was no longer merely a reflection of someone else's ridicule. She was a force seeking to reclaim her narrative. Jason's eyes traced the contours of her face, as if he were attempting to decipher a text he had never studied. "I want to make things right," he replied, yet the words hung in the air, insipid against the electric current crackling between them. "By what? Pretending your past arrogance is suddenly forgotten?" The edges of her disdain curled into an assertive smirk. She refused to allow his wealth and status to overshadow her own significance. The confrontation wasn't just about him, it was about her, a vibrant reiteration of the person she was becoming. He flinched slightly, but her resolve fed from the sight of his discomfort. Had he expected her to roll over, grateful for crumbs of remorse? Instead, she felt empowered by the sting of every harsh word he had tossed her way. They weren't just taunts, they were sparks, fueling her evolution from waitress to enlightening storyteller. "What do you have to gain from this? Is it purely for your conscience?" she probed, a deeper intent blossoming within her to uncover the motives behind his plea. The irony of returning to her reality with this man, a symbol of those who looked down on her, now seemed rich with an opportunity to flip the narrative. "I want you to understand that I know I was wrong. I took our earlier encounters lightly, and I see that your ambitions matter." The desperation in his voice, however distant from sincerity, invoked an unfamiliar empathy in her. Emma hesitated, her instincts battling between skepticism and the gnawing possibility of collaboration. "You think words are enough to redeem your past?" she shot back, cutting through the pretense. It was too easy for her to dismiss him completely, yet within every reciprocated sting there lay a chance to redefine not just perceptions but her own trajectory. A moment of silence enveloped them, shifting her thoughts in a million directions. The sparkle from the neon signs outside danced across Jason's face, revealing fleeting cracks in his arrogant veneer. She could see a flicker. Maybe it was genuine regret, or the realization that pushing her had consequences he had never foreseen. This confrontation was a turning point, fueled by the undercurrents of doubt, fear, and emboldened courage. The implications of her choices weighed heavily on her shoulders, and she sensed the shift within her. Her ambitions were no longer a shadow. They were emerging warriors, ready to fight for their rightful acknowledgement. The visions she had of writing her story, of channeling her voice through her experiences and hard-fought lessons, rushed back to the forefront of her mind. She could draw from this moment, etching clarity into the wreckage of uncertainty with the ink of her newfound fortitude. "Instead of an apology, I'm asking for an opportunity." She steeled her voice, reconstructing the dialogue from a mere confrontation into a potential collaboration. Emma wasn't fully aware of where this narrative would lead, but she understood that every conversation could foster a creative spark inside her, perhaps daring Jason to step from the confines of his privilege and engage with her ambition. She leaned closer, ready to lay her soul bare, but a flicker of doubt momentarily stilled her words. Could she really venture into an alliance with him? Would that diminish her resolve? The thinkings of regret and second-guessing lingered, yet the courage to try to rewrite her narrative began to drown out the hesitations. "Let's rewrite this, Jason. Together, but it starts with real understanding, not half-baked apologies," she declared, wanting to turn their exchange into something more than mere words. At that moment, she saw the recognition flash across his eyes, an equal part intrigue, fear, and the dawning realization of the challenge he now faced. She was evolving, standing not just as a waitress or a mother, but as a contender in a game she once thought was out of her league. This was it. The moment might feel precarious, but she was right on the precipice of illuminating a new path, with the weight of their shared history galvanizing her. As she took a deep breath, preparing for whatever Jason might say next, She felt the walls constricting her dreams crack ever so slightly. But before her thoughts could fully form, the sound of her phone buzzing from her apron pocket jolted her back. One new message. Was it a call for help, or could it unravel everything she had just dared to construct in her mind? The tension flared again, and the weight of her next decision tightened in the pit of her stomach. It was a crossroads revisited. Would it lead to newfound strength, or shake the very foundation of this opportunity? Emma's fingers trembled slightly as she fished her phone out of her pocket, her mind racing with questions. She caught a glimpse of Jason watching her, measuring her every reaction, and she felt the shift of power invigorate her resolve. The buzzing continued, a flurry of emotions intertwining with the sound. She glanced down at the message, and a wave of anxiety washed over her. It was from her sister, a simple text that said, "Mom needs help. Things are getting worse." Just like that, the precarious edge she had been balancing on tipped dangerously close to chaos. The urgency in her sister's words clashed with the electric moment she was sharing with Jason. Her heart sank. Just when she thought she was stepping into a new chapter, another layer of responsibility threatened to pull her back. The realization thrummed in her chest. Her dreams, her ambitions were tangled up in a reality that would not give way. "What is it?" Jason's voice pulled her from her spiraling thoughts. There was something in his tone. Was it concern? Or was he merely probing for her vulnerability? Emma hesitated, weighing the weight of her world against the power of this moment. The very essence of her journey hung in the balance. Would she become distracted by her familial obligations, letting Jason slink back into the dominant narrative of their past? Or was this moment, this difficult confrontation, a chance to forge herself anew? "I need to go," she finally said, her voice surprisingly steady, though a knot twisted in her stomach. "I can't ignore my mom." The silence that followed felt heavy, laden with disappointment and confusion. Jason's brow furrowed, and she could almost hear the wheels turning in his mind as he processed her words. "You're serious? You're just going to leave?" The irony stung her. She didn't want him to be anything like the man she remembered, someone who would disregard her priorities. "This conversation, our potential," she faltered, "it's important, but family is non-negotiable. You have no idea what I'm dealing with." That was it, wasn't it? She stood on the brink of opening herself up to an alliance with someone who, in so many ways, was still a stranger. Was it necessary to delve into that murky territory when her own life demanded immediate attention? But even as she thought of her family's struggles, something pushed against her, an awareness of the choice she had made to take back her narrative. Could she yield to the past and allow it to dictate her future? "Emma, Jason began, but she held up her hand to silence him. A wave of clarity washed over her, the intertwining threads of her life igniting a new determination. She didn't have to choose one or the other. She could take control of both narratives, her family's needs and her own aspirations. "I'm going to help my mom, and when I'm done, I expect you to be ready for this," she said, her voice firm and resolute. "Whatever this is between us, it's not over. Don't think I'll walk away from my dreams just because I have responsibilities." Jason's lips parted slightly, and for an instant she thought she saw admiration mix with a realization of her strength. There was a new level of understanding resting in this fragile space between them, a sliver of respect forging in the silence. As she turned to leave, a peculiar sense of urgency coursed through her. This moment marked a dual awakening. Her commitment to family forged didn't diminish her aspirations, but rather strengthened her resolve in both realms. Yet with each step away from the diner, the question lingered in the air like a haunting melody. Would Jason still be willing to fight for a collaboration, understanding what it meant to support her story? Did he truly grasp the gravity of her choices moving forward? as she battled not just for her own narrative, but for her place within a family that desperately needed her. And as she felt the weight of that unanswered question tighten around her, she knew the road ahead was anything but clear. Emma stepped outside, the cool air acting as a jarring counterpoint to the internal turbulence she felt. Each breath she took felt significant, as if drawing in resolve and exhaling self-doubt. The moment she had shared with Jason echoed in the back of her mind, replaying like a wavering melody, the raw edges of vulnerability, the flicker of admiration in his eyes. But her familial obligation loomed larger than any urban romance. As she walked to her car, her thoughts began to crystallize into a clear picture of what needed to be done. Her mother had always prioritized family over everything else. Emma had often watched her sacrifice her own dreams for the sake of those she loved. This time, the roles had shifted. Emma's grip on the wheel tightened as the notion settled into her mind. She would not only help her mother, but also redefine her own narrative. The drive back was clouded with heavy thoughts. She calculated her next steps, envisioning the conversations she would need to have. Could she be strong enough to confront her mother's deteriorating health without letting it derail her ambitions? The thought of her mother's fragile state ignited a resolve within her. Emma was not merely a daughter in her mother's shadow. She was a woman with aspirations, a multifaceted force that could navigate both love and ambition. Arriving home, Emma was confronted with the chaos that had become all too familiar. The house, once a sanctuary, felt suffocating. Her sister's worried eyes met hers as she entered, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had long depended on one another, and in moments like this, their bond became the lifeline needed to face daunting challenges. "Have you spoken to her today?" her sister asked, voice thick with concern. Emma nodded, bracing herself. "I didn't want to burden you, but I had to take care of a few things first." The lie tasted bitter, but she justified it. There had been more weight on the line than she had been willing to admit earlier. The very act of acknowledging her evolving priorities took bravery. They moved through the day, enacting the familiar dance of caring for their sick mother. Yet somewhere in the routine of making soup, running errands and exchanging worried whispers loomed the spectre of her ambitions. Emma's phone buzzed again, and she stole a glance at the screen, a message from Jason. "Ready to talk when you are?" It was innocent enough. Perhaps he just wanted clarity. Yet the gravity of her decision loomed close. She had to handle Jason carefully. With every word exchanged, she could hear the ghost of their past, an echo threatening to tear at the seams of her newfound focus. Then came a moment in the late afternoon that changed everything. A conversation with her mother brought forth a revelation. Emma discovered that her mother had sacrificed her own career dreams for the sake of her family, a truth that resonated painfully deep. "Emma, I regret nothing," her mother said weakly, eyes illuminating with unfulfilled dreams. "But don't repeat my mistakes. Chase what you love. The world won't wait." With that simple yet profound declaration, everything shifted in Emma. She felt the tension between responsibility and ambition dissolve. Her mother was giving her permission to step fully into her own narrative. The battle of balances within her transformed into a potent source of power. Fueled by this newfound clarity, Emma resolved to address both her mother's needs and her own aspirations directly and honestly. But she still needed a strategy for how to manage her relationship with Jason. He represented an opportunity for collaboration that she could not afford to overlook. As she prepared to call him, a mix of excitement and anxiety flooded her. This was her moment to affirm her growth, to delve into a partnership that could elevate her ambitions while honoring her commitment to her family. But would that partnership with Jason navigate through the complexities of their past without getting ensnared? At that moment, the weight of her choices felt monumental as she dialed Jason's number, the line connecting as she took a breath to speak. Uncertainty swirled, but she also sensed the thrill of potential change. The puddle of her life's complexity was about to ripple out in ways she had yet to grasp as she ventured into uncharted territory. Jason's voice broke through her uncertainty, grounding her in the moment. "Emma," he said, a note of warmth in his tone, "I'm glad you called." His familiarity, wrapped in professional assurance, had a way of easing the tension that coiled within her. But as they began to discuss the project she had initially auditioned for, underneath the surface of their conversation lay a complexity that Emma struggled to navigate. Would he understand her newfound determination to pursue her ambitions without sacrificing her family obligations? Would he respect her evolution, or would he see only the lingering shadow of who she used to be? "I want to make sure we're aligned on the vision for this project," she said cautiously. Emma could feel the words forming a bridge between their past and potential future, an attempt to mend whatever rift had formed. There was a vulnerability in sharing her ambition, yet it was met with silence on the other end. "Is everything okay?" she pressed, wanting to pierce through the barrier of unspoken expectations that threatened to build between them. "Just thinking about how much you've grown," Jason replied slowly. "It's impressive. You always had this potential, but I think you're finally ready to take it on." His praise sent a trickle of warmth through her, but it also stoked her fears. She could not afford to lean too heavily into his words, as intoxicating as they were. What if his expectations became entwined with her obligations, leading her down a path of compromise once more? Yet there was something undeniable about their synergy. The dynamic they could create together was electric. The project could showcase her skills and share the vision she had for her own life, one that merged her personal and professional reality symbiotically. As the conversation shifted more into the specifics, Emma felt the adrenaline surging. Ideas flowed effortlessly. She found herself brainstorming ways to infuse the project with authenticity, the creativity spilling from her like a stream transformed from a trickle. Jason's responses were encouraging, his excitement palpable. She could sense the potential to captivate an audience, a prospect that made her heart race. But as they concluded the call, Emma's earlier exhilaration faded into uncertainty. She was standing on a precarious edge. The balance she had so carefully cultivated felt fragile. Could she assert her new ambitions without neglecting the responsibilities she bore? Would Jason be able to understand that her journey would not follow an expected path while navigating her dual commitments? The phone call lingered in her mind, cycling through her thoughts. She needed to discuss her relationship with Jason, the evolving nature of their partnership, beyond the confines of work. This was a conversation veering towards vulnerability she had not anticipated, one required if she wished to harness the potential they had begun to uncover. That evening, the house felt quieter than usual, a space heavy with the day's revelations. Emma retreated into her thoughts, scribbling down notes and ideas. Each stroke of the pen ignited a spark of determination, a display of the passion she had once stifled. This wasn't just about seizing an opportunity, it was about reclaiming her identity. But beneath the surface, emotions boiled. Every time she thought of her mother, a pang of guilt twisted at her gut, reminding her of the fragility of family ties. She could feel the familiarity of her commitments weighing her down as she prepared to transform her future. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, a new decision dawned on her. Tomorrow, she would initiate the conversation with Jason about their partnership, but she would do it on her terms, with clarity about her goals, her boundaries, and most importantly, her newfound strength. And as the night deepened, Emma imagined the pathways of possibility unfurling before her, waiting for that essential leap. The moment was close, and as the clock ticked, she realized change was no longer a mere abstract idea. It was on the verge of becoming her reality. She could feel the stakes rising, an adrenaline-fueled anticipation brimming in her chest. Would Jason understand the woman she had become, or would the complexities of past connections bring her back down? As she drifted off to sleep, she pondered how to wield her ambition like a sword, sharp, decisive, and reflective of every choice she had made. The next day would test the very essence of her evolution, and within her stirred a profound sense of urgency. Would she emerge stronger on the other side, or would the shadows of doubt and obligation bind her once more? The morning light crept into Emma's room, sharp and bright, casting the shadows of doubt from her mind like scattered dust. She inhaled deeply, the air thick with determination. This was the day. The conversation she'd been anticipating with Jason loomed ahead, a rain cloud holding the promise of powerful storms. All it took was a single spark to ignite change. Emma dressed intentionally, each choice reflective of her newfound confidence. She slipped into a tailored blazer that hugged her silhouette just right, signaling the shift from self-doubt to self-assertion. This was not merely a business meeting. It was an assertion of her identity. She checked herself in the mirror, her own gaze both fierce and soft, an embodiment of the fierce femininity she wished to present to Jason. Her heart raced as she made her way to the cafe, a sight charged with memories of countless meetings and lively discussions, but today felt different. Today she stepped into it as a formidable presence, not a spectre of her former self. The clatter of dishes and buzz of conversation enveloped her, but she focused inward, rehearsing her points, anticipating potential objections, and preparing her rebuttals. As Jason arrived, his smile was warm, yet a part of her recoiled instinctively, memories of their previous conversations surfacing. She reminded herself this was a new chapter, one steeped in collaboration rather than dependency. "Jason," she greeted, voice steady, "I'm glad we can meet." He gestured for them to sit, the casual air inviting yet charged with unspoken tension. Emma took a breath, centering herself. "I wanted to talk about our project and where we stand," she began, her voice unwavering. The dialogue unfolded seamlessly, flowing into the specifics of their shared vision, but underneath, the deeper conversation loomed. As they discussed ideas for their project, Emma pushed into uncharted territory. "I think we need to incorporate elements that reflect not only our professional skills, but also our personal experiences, our authenticity," she stated. Jason nodded, visibly impressed, the light in his eyes confirming the potential she hoped to uncover. But she sensed something lurking beneath his enthusiasm. His earlier praise echoed in her mind. "You're finally ready to take it on." What did that mean? Was he only seeing her as a revitalized project leader, or did he acknowledge the brewing complexities of their partnership? Swallowing hard, she decided it was now or never. "Jason," she said, the weight of her voiced intentions almost palpable in the air between them. "We need to define how we work together moving forward. I want to make sure my personal commitments are acknowledged, that they're not just sideshows to our professional aspirations." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, and for a moment the silence stretched uncomfortably. Her heart thumped loudly in her ears. Had she pushed too far? But she couldn't retreat. "I am learning to balance my ambitions with my responsibilities, and I need you to understand that my progress will require respect for my time and choices." He straightened, an unexpected tension crackling in the air. "Emma, I respect that, I truly do, but—" His use of "but" tossed her heart back into uncertainty. "But I have high expectations. We both do. High expectations don't mean sacrificing my life outside of this project," she shot back. The gloves were off, and she felt the thrill of confrontation buzz in her veins. "If we're going to create an authentic narrative, it needs to reflect every aspect of our lives. My life, not just the parts that fit neatly into a mold." Jason's eyes narrowed, the challenge igniting a spark in his demeanor. "So, you want to set the terms?" he asked, a mixture of intrigue and caution weaving through his words. Yes, but it's not about setting terms unilaterally. It's about collaboration with boundaries. I can't be everything at once. An ambitious leader, a devoted family member. It has to coexist realistically. I need you to support that. The air thickened weightily, electrified by their standoff. What had begun as a meeting of minds was quickly turning into a negotiation of wills. In this moment of conflict, she recognized the sheer magnitude of her ambition. This was bigger than work. It was about her very identity. But as she gauged Jason's response, anticipation twisted in her gut. Would this be the moment she proved her worth and her boundaries, or would it send them both spiraling into an unresolved confrontation? Caught in the crossfire of her resolve and their tenuous partnership, Emma realized both that the stakes had risen higher than she'd anticipated, and that this was just the beginning of what would ripple from her bold assertions. As Jason leaned back, contemplative, the silence deepening, Emma girded herself for his response. This was not only about a project. It was about asserting her autonomy in a world that had often challenged her ability to balance ambition with responsibility. "What if I told you that pushing back is something I admire?" he finally said, a hint of a smile breaking through his seriousness. The opening was there, but as his words hung in the air, Emma sensed a deeper challenge lay ahead. Would this push toward authenticity help them both to evolve, or would it lead to greater confrontations back in the shadows? With the weight of uncertainty lurking, Emma steeled herself for whatever was coming next. Emma's heart cautiously danced at Jason's revelation. Pushing back was one thing, but admiring it felt like an unexpected lifeline. Did he truly understand the depth of what she was asking for, or was this merely a strategic maneuver to deflect the tension? 1,000 thoughts raced through her mind as she scanned his face for answers, but his expression remained elusive, a blend of admiration and challenge that stirred her insecurities anew. Taking a deep breath, she ventured further. "I appreciate your recognition, Jason, but real admiration necessitates action. It's not enough to say you support my boundaries. I need to see it reflected in how we work together. I want our collaboration to feel like a partnership, not a negotiation of my limits." Jason nodded slowly, the smirk fading as he weighed her words. "You're right," he conceded, his tone shifting towards sincerity. "I've been caught up in my own expectations without considering how they impact you. But let's get real here. Balancing personal commitments in a driven environment like ours isn't simple." Emma felt a rush of affirmation. They were peeling back layers, igniting a dialogue that dared to reveal the uncertainties they both harbored. "It isn't supposed to be simple, but it should feel manageable," she replied, her voice strong. "I want to own my role in this without sacrificing what makes me human." The intensity shifted. The stakes felt far more significant now. They weren't just discussing project timelines, they were grappling with the fabric of their working relationship. Emma's mind flickered through the various dimensions of her life, the responsibilities that accompanied her ambitions. Could she genuinely blend these worlds without losing herself? Jason's brow furrowed as he leaned forward. "Let's co-create the framework together. How about we establish checkpoints, regular meetings to reassess our workloads? We can outline what we each need without overstepping personal boundaries." A wave of relief washed over Emma, tempered by the scrutiny of commitment laced within his proposal. "I like that idea. It allows us to check in consistently, and more importantly, it affirms that I don't need to choose between my ambitions and personal life. But I'll need to trust that you'll hold up your end of the deal." He met her gaze. "Trust goes both ways, Emma. I want your input directly, not just defensively. If I'm still blurring those lines, call me out. I want this collaboration to thrive." The challenge of honest feedback reverberated between them. His openness ignited a spark in Emma. For so long, She had felt like remnants on the cutting room floor of others' narratives. Now she was stepping into the spotlight, shaping the story with her emerging voice. I promise to call you out. We have to go beyond surface-level agreements. It's about genuinely valuing each facet of what we bring to this table. Jason recognized this inflection point as well. You want recognition for every part of your life? Fine. Let's frame our project to mirror that. How can we create content that celebrates both of our stories? Her heart swelled. We need to dig deeper. If we're going for authenticity, we cannot ignore the struggle of managing dual identities. Let's include stories that highlight that tension, the reality of balancing our different roles. Jason's eyes sparkled with excitement. As they mapped out ideas, drawing on their own experiences, they began framing a shared narrative, a project that echoed their collective ambition and personal truths. But as Emma immersed herself in the flow of their creativity, a shadow flickered at the edges of her consciousness. Could this partnership last? Or was this merely a temporary alliance emulating the peace they had forged? Past patterns occasionally came crashing in, whispering doubts like a persistent wind that threatened to drown out dialogue. Emma, are you with me on this? You seem a bit distant. Jason's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts, a tether back to the present. Tension pulsed in her chest. What did she want? Was she truly ready to claim this space, not just for herself, but also to confront the possibility of deeper collaboration and conflict? I am, she assured him, though the uncertainty lingered. I really am. But would her commitment hold steadfast as the project unfolded, revealing the complexities they had yet to navigate? The exchange shimmered with potential and hidden discord. As they built their narrative, Emma recognized a new challenge surfacing. Each day could either forge a stronger partnership or fracture into misunderstandings. With her aspirations parallel to her personal life, the next stage would demand not only courage, but also resilience. She could almost hear the ticking clock urging her to decide. As they shook hands on their ideas, a faint unease pulsed beneath the surface. What lay ahead could either reflect the unity they tapped into today or unravel the fragile trust they were still building. Nothing was certain, and just as quickly as progress bloomed, it could wilt. Emma raised her chin, the stakes looming larger than before. It was time to face the invisible fissures that might either bind or break them apart. Let's start with sharing our struggles openly, Jason suggested, his tone shifting toward earnest. Her heart quickened at the invitation. Would this new openness anchor their collaboration or carve new battlegrounds? Emma took a breath, ready to venture into unexplored territories, knowing fully well that vulnerability also meant potential pain. The pathway had opened, but as she forged onward, the heart of the matter loomed just ahead, an encounter that could either solidify their connection or expose unseen fractures lurking within. Would she seize the moment, or would the fissures crack wider, unraveling the values she fought to establish? Emma settled into the rhythm of their collaboration, encouraged by the exchange of ideas that flowed between them. The initial tension had given way to an invigorated sense of purpose, but beneath that, an undercurrent of anxiety persisted. With each brainstorming session, the eagerness for their project to take shape was accompanied by the subtle fear that their new trust might crumble at any moment. Jason had suggested a shared narrative, and Emma was determined to honor both their identities as they crafted content. However, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were both teetering on the brink of something significant, something that could either build an unshakable foundation or demolish everything they had begun to construct. As they outlined their stories, Emma found herself reflecting on her own experiences. Memories flashed by, moments of doubt and triumph, hurt and healing. She was on the cusp of revealing her true self, not just to Jason, but to a broader audience. Each word felt heavy with implications, Authenticity was no longer a theoretical concept, but a lived experience she was now poised to share. "Let's include our failures along with our successes," Emma suggested one afternoon, her voice steady yet courageous. "If we want to paint a real picture, we can't just highlight the wins." Jason's expression shifted, a hint of hesitation evident in his eyes. "You think people are ready for that kind of vulnerability? Nobody wants to see the messy parts of someone's journey." Emma's pulse quickened with determination. "But that's precisely why this could matter. By acknowledging our struggles, we invite others into the truth of who we are. It shows that we're real. It humanizes us." "Maybe," Jason replied, his brows furrowing as he pondered her words. "But how do we ensure that doesn't overshadow our message?" The challenge in his question lingered, effectively mirroring her inner conflict. Emma's instinct urged her to dive deeper into vulnerability, yet she felt the pressure of professionalism looming over her. Striking that balance felt like walking a tightrope. One misstep could send her tumbling into doubt. "Perhaps we should frame it as a journey," Emma proposed, leaning in with excitement. "We can show how our struggles have shaped our growth. It becomes more encapsulating that way." As they worked through the intricacies of their project, Emma couldn't help but notice the way her confidence was blossoming. The fear of being judged began to transform into a fierce determination to be heard. Each time she spoke up, it felt like reclaiming a fragment of her narrative. There was newfound power in articulating her boundaries and ambitions. It was as though she was gaining clarity with every exchange. Yet an unsettling thought curled in the back of her mind. Was she merely performing a role, or was she genuinely evolving? Self-doubt lingered like a ghost, whispering that her progress might be superficial. "Emma," Jason's voice sliced through her thoughts. "You seem lost for a second. What's on your mind?" His inquiry jolted her back to the present. She hesitated, her heart racing, weighing whether to strip back another layer of her facade and unveil the trepidation lurking beneath. "I'm just wondering if I'm really ready to lay it all bare." Jason's gaze softened. "That's part of the process. It sounds daunting, but it's also where the magic lies. We can't be afraid to express our complexities. It's what separates us from being just another corporate presentation." In his words, Emma found a foothold. Perhaps this was her moment to confront the very fears that had long held her in a state of quiet resignation. Could she truly embrace the intricacies of her existence without recoiling? The project felt like a crucible for transformation, a chance not just to redefine her role, but to reshape her entire sense of self. With a resolve that surprised her, she met Jason's thoughtful gaze. "Let's do it then. Let's tell the stories that matter, the ones that highlight our fears alongside our achievements." As they resumed their collaborative brainstorming, excitement surged through Emma, but just as soon, a familiar unease crept back in. What if revealing too much led to vulnerabilities they could not control? What if the very transparency that empowered her also stripped her of her security? She had touched on the edge of something profound, but now the stakes felt higher than ever. The next meeting loomed, and with it, a decision that could either fortify their connection or fracture their fledgling partnership. Would it lead to a deeper understanding, or cast them into the tumultuous waters of raw authenticity? With her heart racing, Emma realized she was standing at the precipice of transformation. In that moment, she understood the choice would define not just their project, but her very own evolution. As she prepared to engage, she knew the true test was yet to come, an impending revelation that could alter everything she had fought to build. The week unfolded with palpable tension, each day's interaction with Jason pushing Emma into deeper introspection. They had opened the doors to collaboration, but the vulnerability that lay just beneath the surface hinted at the necessary confrontation approaching. Did their project truly reflect their authentic selves, or were they still bound to the expectations set by their past encounters? On the morning of their next meeting, Emma chose her outfit deliberately, an ensemble that communicated both professionalism and her evolving identity. As she entered the cafe, the memories of their previous discussions replayed in her mind. With each step, the reality pressed in on her. This meeting could either solidify their partnership or expose the cracks lurking unseen. As Emma settled into her seat, she caught sight of Jason entering. His expression carried an intensity that matched her nerves, a reminder that they were about to venture into uncharted territory. "Ready to get into the real stuff?" he asked with a hint of a smile. Emma nodded, but her heart raced. "Let's look at our narratives honestly today. It's time to reflect on what our lives truly represent. What do we want to say about our journeys?" He agreed, and they began to delve into the details of their project. As ideas flowed, Emma felt a surge of excitement, but it was intertwined with trepidation. The stories they shared began touching on their pasts, cradling their fears while illuminating success. Yet there was something unspoken, a crucial element that felt missing. "It almost feels too polished," Emma observed, frowning slightly. "We need to tackle the uncomfortable parts, the fears that have held us back. If we want authenticity, we need to reflect that journey, that tension." Jason leaned back, crossing his arms thoughtfully, digesting her words. "You're suggesting we illuminate our struggles more, not just our victories?" "Yes," she said firmly. "We have to show the messy reality. For me, it's about being a single mother while trying to reclaim my ambitions. For you, it could be about the relentless pressure of your success. We both carry layers, and those stories deserve to be told." Jason's response was slow but deliberate. "You're right. I've often felt a desire to disguise the challenges with my persona, but perhaps that's why I've struggled to connect with others, because I wasn't letting them in on the whole picture." Emma felt relief wash over her. This was the moment they needed. They weren't just discussing a project. They were embarking on a deeper journey, illuminated by vulnerability. "Let's write not just about our successes, but how we overcame our fears to achieve them. Maybe that will resonate more." As they shared their narratives, Emma's fears of judgment shrank within the camaraderie they were building. She could envision the content, a dual narrative that unmasked their vulnerabilities and shared the intimately human truths behind their ambitions. But as they dug deeper, a sense of urgency fluttered inside her. "There's something I need to address," Emma began, her voice steady yet cautious. "How are we going to maintain this openness while also ensuring we don't overshadow what really matters? I've realized something important about boundaries. I can't operate at my best unless they're respected." Jason raised an eyebrow, a challenge brewing in his gaze. "Define your boundaries, then. What are you looking for here?" Emma inhaled deeply, finding strength in her words. "I need reassurance that my personal commitments won't be overlooked. My time, my responsibilities, they're vital to who I am. I won't compromise that for success." The gravity of her assertion settled between them. She watched for Jason's response, heart hammering in anticipation. Was he ready to support her evolution, or would her pride trigger defensiveness? "You're making a bold demand," he replied slowly, "but I think it's necessary, and it reflects a mutual setup. I'm all in for making this work, Emma. The last thing I want is to turn your dreams into burdens." A weight lifted, and Emma felt a surge of liberation. "Thank you for understanding. This means a lot to me. If we can build this foundation of respect, there's no limit to what we can achieve together." Their conversation unfolded slowly, layers peeling back with each exchange. By the end of the meeting, both felt a sense of empowerment. This project was becoming more than lines on paper. It was a reflection of their identities. With shared excitement and renewed conviction, they set a timeline and concrete goals. As they parted, Emma took a moment to breathe, inhaling the possibilities that lay ahead. She was not merely balancing commitments. She was illustrating a narrative where her ambitions coexisted with her realities. The project began taking shape. Her writing flow surged, recounting personal anecdotes infused with emotions. Each word grounded her more firmly in her narrative, while Jason offered critical insights without encroaching on her boundaries. What held them together was their willingness to reveal their truths, illuminating the complexities they both navigated. As weeks progressed, Emma noticed profound changes within. Her emerging voice resonated in the work, and acknowledgement from Jason fortified her newfound self-worth. No longer did she attempt to mask her struggles. Instead, she weaved them into a rich tapestry that showcased resilience. The culmination of their project approached, the potential for a launch that would display their collaborative narrative to an audience hung heavy in the air. But just as excitement simmered, an unexpected message sent a jolt through Emma's chest. "Can we meet? There's something important we need to discuss." Jason's words were urgent. Setting her heart on edge, Emma pondered the message. What could this mean? Had they strayed from their course, or would this encounter reinforce their hard-won momentum? In an anxious swirl of thoughts, she found herself trusting the process. Whatever revelations lay ahead, she was no longer just a waitress cloaked in doubt. She was a storyteller, ready to anchor her narrative in both struggle and triumph, securing her place in a world that had long underestimated her. As she stepped into the cafe for the meeting, determination rang inside her. This was her moment to cement her personal and professional journey, not just for herself, but as a testament to women who dared to break free from shadows. "Jason," she greeted, eyes steady, prepared to confront whatever awaited. "Let's talk." In that moment, the world felt full of possibility. She was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay ahead, having documented the journey that led her to this very point. This was not just about reflection, but about creation, convergence, and transformation. A deeply personal narrative unfolding and resonating across the pages of her life. The future was uncertain, but as tides changed and paths intertwined, Emma knew one thing truthfully. Her identity was her most significant achievement, and she would continue to share that journey fearlessly.